Hello.
Hello, hello,
Who's
hello. I'll do the
hello, hello,
intro.
hello.
It looks like
Do the
Tracy's a little
intro.
bit blurred.
Yes, Tracy, you look
I
blurred,
am.
but I'll do the intro in the
I am.
meantime. Yes, Tracy, you look a little blurred, but we can hear you
Oh,
fine.
all right.
Welcome.
Is it my
Happy
light?
Wednesday, everybody. It's the Naked Three. We're back again. Three diverse
Wicked.
women, three different backgrounds. I'm Lorraine. I'm from California, and I work in higher ed as a career counselor.
You're from
I'm
California?
Reese.
Did I say
Wait, Lorraine
California?
just said, yeah, you
I
just said
said
you're from
California. I
California.
haven't. I'm from New York. I don't know what I'm talking. I'm getting old. I'm
Oh,
turning. I'm
I can tell that's New York. That's New York. For
New
sure.
York.
Yes.
New York.
Uh,
I'll go
Lorraine,
next. I'm
Reese,
Reese. I'm from North Carolina and I'm a psychotherapist as well. Hello. Hello.
Tracy in Germany.
All right,
How's
ladies.
that?
How are we today?
I don't know. You two seem like you got something going on. So let's kind of talk about it.
Okay, she's sipping her wine. She's ready for us.
I'm drinking water because I can't walk up the stairs to get the wine. So,
I'm drinking water as well.
but I have a
I
whole
was
box of
going to drink
satsumas.
water. I was going to drink water. My husband said, why don't you just unwind and have some wine? I was like, sure.
He is correct on that. So, our topic today is how do we get into therapy? How apropos for this week, too.
Because I need
Wow.
therapy today. Let me tell you. We were late because I just got a free therapy session from Larice and Lorraine. I've been anxious today.
I'm
Wasn't
glad we
anxious
were
at all
able to.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Should we
but
all
that's
just take a deep breath?
sure.
I already meditated today. I don't want to take another deep breath. I want to hold my breath.
Well, take one anyway for
I want
us.
to be stressed. I want to be clenched in my shoulders. I want to bite down really hard on my jaw, and I just want to be like, "Ugh." All right,
So
I'll take it.
you want to throw a temper tantrum.
Oh,
You want
Okay.
to throw an adult temper tantrum. That's what
mm,
happens. That's what
It
mm.
happens.
happens.
It happens.
It happens.
Okay, ready? Deep breath.
One more.
Okay.
Wow. It's like that wine in my mouth rushed to my brain. I feel great. Okay, so ladies, what's on the agenda?
Well, you decided that we were going to talk about what got us into therapy,
Okay,
what
perfect
made us
topic.
become therapists.
Well,
Ready, set, go.
Larice,
perfect topic.
you go first.
Hi, Cherie.
Um, how I got into therapy, I was a rec therapist first. And I really enjoyed what I was doing.
What is
And
a
then
rec therapist?
you do you do therapeutic recreation. So, say if you have, for example, if you have a goal of you losing weight or stop
Okay.
smoking, you can use rec therapy. It's more creative, but it's still therapy.
Okay.
So, I noticed I was having a lot of clients come in with mental health issues, and so I just sort of glided into it from there.
Cool.
But
How long ago? Like, was this a long time ago or recently or
in 2012 was when I went to grad school,
okay.
Hmm. Okay.
and I love the profession. I just enjoy seeing people, make progress, work on themselves, because I think we're all capable of being better people, whatever that means for their individual, a better quality of life. And I also realized recently that having a crazy family sort of helped me figure out why I was going to therapy. I think I was looking for answers how to figure out what the fudge is wrong with these people.
You mean your family?
Right, because I felt like I belonged somewhere else. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this is so not normal. And I think somewhere along the way, I was always searching for or seeking answers.
Yeah.
And then I came to realize that there may not be answers. So then I started looking for the meaning and less understanding.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's my story.
So did you go to therapy before you became a therapist?
I did
Yeah.
a lot.
Well, so you knew about the profession.
I knew about it, and I also had psychology major as my undergrad in the
Oh, you
beginning.
did? Okay.
Okay.
And my family started popping out all over the pages, and I started getting scared. I was like, "Oh gosh, that's her, that's him, and this might be me." And tell me more.
The
So
circle of the alcoholic family and the roles that they play.
right, and like the mental health part, it's like you live in a situation so long, it appears normal, but when you go outside of that and you're with colleagues and other students and teachers, they tell you that is not normal behavior. So then I decided, how can I contribute to making myself a better person and maybe not judging them as a young person, but realizing that there's something going on deeper.
Hmm.
And
It sounds like it was liberating for you in some
absolutely
sense.
to the 10th power.
Hmm.
Very. So that's
So,
how I
so
became
I
like,
have a question. Did you tell people that you were in therapy in your family or not?
no, because in my family, if you mention therapy, it's like, are you freaking frick fracking motherfucking crazy? And I'm like,
Okay,
well,
you didn't say that, but you were kind of alluding to it because I'm like, wait a second, like you making it sound so seamless. I'm like, did she tell people? Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
no,
I
I,
agree
I
with
I
you.
think for me, when I did tell family, it was when I knew I was in a good place myself because I
Mm,
knew the reaction that I would get, that I had to be prepared not to react, but to respond.
right.
And then I realized that some family members are better off not in my life,
Gotcha. Okay.
which was difficult. But today I am living my best life.
You are.
You are. Tracy and I are envious of that. We'll be there one day.
But you could be there in your way, but
I'm there in
I
my
am
own
there,
way.
but
I
I'm
am
always
there in
gonna.
my
I
own
could be
way.
doing exactly what you're doing, but I'd still be an anxiety sufferer. Swear to God, I'd be having anxiety about the damn bread that's in the oven. I'd
well,
find something to
I
be
think
anxious
I
about.
think for me, when I started perimenopause, I have anxiety with driving. So I don't
Oh,
drive
really?
really. Yeah, I don't drive. So I think anxiety is different for different people. And for me, um, I don't know. I think I'm looking back now. I think it started when I didn't even realize I was going through perimenopause. People driving made me anxious,
Mm,
Interesting.
and so now I'm more go when I need to. Um, I just enjoy doing things that I enjoy doing, and I am
Hmm.
so comfortable with sh- shutting people out of my life that are not in my village.
mm.
They're not my supporters. They're not on my team. They're not in my village. So it's like, go find your village or bye, because I'm not having it.
That's so interesting. I sent you guys the picture of my new home office. And
Hmm.
on my vision board, it says align yourself with people you can learn from and people who want more out of life and who are stretching and searching and seeking for some higher ground in life. So that's on my vision board. So definitely, I totally agree with you on that for
I
sure.
saw part of it when I zoomed in, but I couldn't read it all. But I think too, some of it has to do with age. I think the older we get, the more insightful we are, and the less that we tolerate the BS. It's like we don't have time for messiness, so let's just get to what it is what we need to discuss or what it is we're doing.
Hmm.
So that's my story.
Well, but what I hear you saying is that it's not that the other people are messy. It's that they're not a fit for you. It's not like the people that aren't in your village are bad people. It's that they're not a fit to be in your village.
Right. They're not bad people. They're definitely messy though.
I
They're
like
not
messy
bad
people.
people. Messy people are okay when you have leisure time. For me, when I have time, messy people, but when I have business to do, messy people, I don't have time.
Well,
I
and it's
like
also
messy people on
possible.
television. I don't want messy people in my
Right.
own life.
Right.
Well, and I think probably messy to you and messy to me are also different. Like I'm the reason I'm having a reaction because I don't like judging people. I don't like calling
Okay.
people I hate the phrase toxic people. I don't like calling people messy. They're toxic for you. They're messy for me. Like, I think it's right. I think we have to discern this person is not good for my heart and soul. But
Right.
I'd rather know that and say it that way than call them messy or toxic. I hate
Well,
that phrase
I'll
toxic
change
people.
it
The
this way.
negative connotation that comes with it.
Messy behaviors, because you can change the person. I don't like toxic behaviors. I don't like messy behaviors, because some people who have messy behaviors are good people. They just have this messy behavior that they sort of have for whatever reason, but it doesn't fit for me on my daily basis.
What's messy? What are messy behaviors?
Um, Indecisive. He said, she said,
Oh, gossipy.
right. And in a family, it's like they align, certain family members align with other family members, even though they know their behavior is a bad behavior, but they
Mm,
align with, say there's 8 kids, 5 might align with the mom who they know has really messy behaviors. But
mhm.
because that's familiar to them, they align with that person instead of saying, you know what, this is messy behavior. Let's look at this and maybe use some conflict resolution. All that is out the window. They just say, I'll go with the messy behavior because it's easier, it's less work.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
No, I just wanted to know because I think it's probably different. We'd all answer that differently. What is messy? Like, messy to me are people that don't take responsibility for their own. Like, I have room for lots of messy. As long as you take ownership of your part, I'm down. If you're good at repairing, you can be pretty messy with me.
I
But if
think
you if
So
you
you
if
like
you
people to
don't,
take ownership of whatever it is they're doing.
yeah.
a
Okay.
lot of people who have messy behaviors don't acknowledge their messy
And they're
behavior.
not going to be in my village.
Right. I agree. Right. If I have a friend I know she's messy and she says, "Girl, I'm being really messy today," that's okay because I get that she's owning it. But the people who have messy behaviors, who spill wine all over your clothes and like, well, so what? I spill wine on your clothes.
Mm-mm.
So Tracy, I have a question. Why I would discern that it bothers you that people don't take responsibility. Do you know where that came from? Because I like that totally resonated with me when you
Totally.
said it.
Yeah.
Totally and completely resonated with me.
You know that one Instagram quote, you're going to be free the minute you stop waiting for an apology you're never going to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that one before? I think I spent a lot of years of my life waiting for that kind of acknowledgement from my mom.
Mm.
She's never. And so now when I meet people like that, I just get fiery inside. Or when they, the other thing is because I'm so good at taking responsibility for my part and I'm like overly vocal about, here's my flaws. Sometimes those kind of people will seek me out because then they can just hand that all over to me. So that's the piece that I'm working on in terms of my village. I'm like, I'm going to be a responsibility taker, but you can't be close to me unless you are too. Because
Right.
otherwise, you're just going to hand me your your bag of goodies, and that's not going to work for me.
Now, did your mom teach you to be responsible, or that level of responsibility came from your own?
Church, baby.
Church.
Repenting my
Okay.
sins.
Got you.
So you grew up in
Got
a
you.
really
So my experience is a little bit different. Go ahead, Larice. I'll tell you after.
okay. So just to hear what Tracy's saying, so you grew up in a very strict religious home.
Very.
Okay.
6 days a
So
week. 6 days a week at church.
okay, so see, this helps me
She's
understand.
analyzing me.
No, I'm just saying it helps me understand you as my friend more.
And it gives us context also.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So and there's like I'm having like so many like aha poo 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 poo
Oh, yeah?
moments. Yeah, because and I realize like a lot of like, so you talk about like strict religious household and responsibility. I grew up in a strict West Indian household that stressed responsibility. So it's like that's why I feel like a lot of our thought process and owning our mistakes, we align in that kind of way because of that background. And I know for me, how I ended up in therapy, and for a long time, I didn't tell anybody because I was ashamed, and it was, it was embarrassing, but I wanted to help people. And I was a case manager for like 15 years. And then I decided to go back and do my master's in school counseling because I wanted a career that was more like mother friendly, because I had this little kid I had to take care of. And I thought school counseling, was like the way to go, school schedule, all that stuff. And in my last semester of graduate school, we were doing all like these vignettes, like you're the therapist, you're the client. And, we were doing like all these role playing kind of things. And here I was given the vignette as a client, and I'm doing the vignette, and all of a sudden I'm hysterical crying in class, like bawling my eyes out. I don't even remember why. And the teacher, Professor Patricia Woods from Queens College, I love her. She said, I was angry at her at the time. She says to me after class, I was very angry. After class, she was like, "Oh, are you in therapy?" And I'm like, "No, why? Like, I'm here in school. This is enough." She's like, "No, you really need to go see somebody. I think you're in crisis." Remember, I started grad school September 2001. So that was right after the Twin Tower attacks.
Wow.
So it was like, so this was like 4 years later. She was like, "You're feeling some residuals, job loss, moving, not losing your partner, all this kind of stuff going on. You need to go see somebody." And I'm like, "Is it required?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Well, then I'm not going." She's like, "I'm not going." Like, real attitude with it. And on my way home, I drove to my parents' house to pick up my daughter. And I was like, "By the way, this teacher just said I need to be in therapy, and I don't have the money to pay for it. I'm a single mom. You're going to pay for it." And my father's words to me was, "I don't know why you need this therapy. It's crazy white women thing, but are you going to get your degree out of it?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Okay, how much money do you need?" And he and my mom wrote the check for it. Like 1 week he wrote a check, and 1 week my mom wrote a check. So in at least my mom, she didn't really kick up a fuss about it. My dad was more like, "Is this going to help you get your degree? Then I will help you do it. I don't think you need it. I think that's some old sugar honey iced tea you learn in school. You don't need it. But if it's going to help you complete your degree, where am I giving my money to?" So it was that kind of thing. And I'll never forget when I called up, I was like, "I'm going to do it on my lunch break so I don't have to find a babysitter," all this like secretive kind of stuff. When I went in to meet the therapist, who I'm still see her to this day, Joanne, shout out to Joanne Melito. I saw her, and it was a white woman. And I was like, "How is this fat white woman going to help me? She's never going to understand like anything about me." Total made judgment about her. And I have to say, she's the best thing that ever happened to me, other than my kid and jobs and things like that. But she definitely rates in the top 10 for sure. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
I think I think most people's story is sort of similar, because when I went to several different ones, because first time I had a guy and he told it to me really straight. "Your parent is this way. This is how she is. This is what you can do. This is what you expect. But go ahead and do it." And this was through college. It was free. And I was like, at that time, you got to be convinced that these folks are really who, because I don't know him. He's a stranger. But he was spot on. Years later, Dr. Kavanaugh, he was spot on. And so I love what I do. And that's why I think I work really hard to support people finding their truth and having a better quality of life. Because I remember when I was struggling that I did not have the resources that a lot of young people have today.
Yeah, resources is a huge thing for sure.
How did I was in tech, but I was in therapy because I'd already been depressed and was really depressed. And so my friends like said, "You must go to therapy." And there was a point in time where my job, I was doing well financially, but just didn't feed my soul. And I took a year off work. I made, back in the .com era, people were making a lot of money in the Valley. It was the first time I'd ever made money, and I didn't come from a lot of money. So I just took a year off and traveled. And I felt like I got in touch with a kind of spirituality beyond the church, doing lots of yoga and hanging out with, I went on a road, like tour in Bali with a bunch of 60 and 70-year-old women. It was super sweet. And I was surfing. So I was in the ocean every day for like 3 hours.
I can imagine that. I can imagine you doing that.
Yeah. Oh my God, I was so fit. I looked better at 27 than I did when I was 17. It's hard. But when I got back, I just, I took another tech job and then I got laid off and I wasn't even upset. I was like, yes, got laid off. This is so great. The universe is making the decision for
You're
me.
like, thank God.
Yeah, I was I just needed that like push. And you know what? I really was unattached. I had a fancy car and a nice condo, and I'm like, screw it. Getting rid of the car. I got rid of the car and got an old used pickup truck, got rid of all my crap, moved into a shared apartment, completely downsized my life just to go back to graduate school. Was willing to kind of put a lot on the line. Yeah. Wow. So that's how, and I've been doing it for 16 years now. And I remember one of my supervisors said that 10 years in, you'll start to feel like you know what you're doing. And I remember thinking at 10 years in, I'm like, oh, I finally feel like I kind of understand what's happening. And then more importantly, another friend said to me, she said, you've arrived as a therapist when you can have a client come in the room and you have no clue what's going on and you're completely not anxious. And that's how I feel. I feel so trusting of my presence in the So you know how I suffer from anxiety around leading sidewalk talk? I have zero anxiety when I'm with clients. It's like my most grounded whole state. I feel completely at ease with people.
I remember thinking one time when I knew, I'll tell you when I knew like I arrived, I remember working with a student. Now in career services, a lot of what you do is like really transactional because it's like you're looking at resumes and cover letters, and that's not my get down, right? Like mine is more transformational and what are we doing and what goals are we setting? In any case, so we were trained as coaches and I was like, all right, I got to infuse this coach and counseling thing together. So I was working with this young lady, and the population of students that I mostly work with are future therapists, like mental health, rehab counseling, and teachers. So I'm going over her resume. She had gotten an interview. This is when like teachers weren't getting jobs, and she was called in for a substitute art position. She had done her student teaching there, and they just wanted to like interview her to pretty much give her this sub position as the art teacher. Now, getting an art teacher position at that time was like almost unheard of because they had so many teachers. And we talked, we were preparing for the interview and all this other stuff. And she's getting ready to walk out the door, like she's packing up. And I said to her, I'm like, let me ask you a question. Why do you feel like you're not going to be a good teacher? And she started to cry. I was like, oh, I opened up a can of worms. How am I going to put all this back? And I said to her, I was like, is it because English isn't your first language and you use art through your students and how to teach and speak? And she goes, yes. And I was like, all right, we got to sit down. So we unpacked that and we debriefed it. And I was like, remember, you finished your master's. You already did your student teaching. They already asked you to come in. The interview is a formality. So remember, they've already said you are good enough. And I was like, I do feel like you should see somebody and address those issues outside of that, blah, 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 blah. And the next day, she sent me an email saying that she got the position and that it was a long-term sub position for the year and that she wanted to thank me for my help the day before and that she definitely was going to seek out a therapist. And I thought to myself, that literally was like my intuition just saying, and that was just taking a chance on it. So I was like, oh, all the skills are sharpened. They're all coming together right now. And that's when I kind of knew. I was like, all right, I arrived. So, when my boyfriend says to me, he's like, can you turn that off? Can you turn it off? I'm like, I can't. Like, I could turn it down, but I can't turn it off because sometimes it just comes out when I least expect it, those insightful kind of things. But to circle back to the responsibility thing, I remember my therapist said to me, your mother taught you to be responsible, but she takes no responsibility for her actions. And that was really profound for me. And that statement to this day still grounds me when I have disagreements with my mother. I always think like, okay, I'm not going to eat the carrot. Be like, this is where I'm at. I'm going to own it. And we're going to leave you. I'm going to say what I need to say and just leave that alone. And I don't like, I almost want to say I didn't have the level of maturity that Larice had or awareness to walk away from that type of situation. But I felt like this is what it is. I'm here. And these are the tools that I have to handle the situation where I am. So,
but I didn't live in the house either, like
right.
you live, I was able to put a little bit of a distance between us because we didn't live in the same house. But if you live in the same close area, it's a little bit more challenging to not, But I think, again, I go back to, I think sometimes some people are so wounded where they came from, whatever trauma it was they experienced, that is so deep, they're not even able to bring it up to a level that they're capable of acknowledging their behavior.
Tracy and I just had this conversation about, are they not willing to change or not capable of change? So
I agree. I think you're not capable unless you're open to acknowledge the willingness. It's like motivational interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
What stage are these people at? And some people stay at that stage where there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with my behavior. And some people move on to, well, I'm thinking about it. I know I really need to change the way I behave, but I'm just not ready. Right. And then there's those people who are actively changing. See it. But I think for me, my parents stayed at that first stage that there's nothing wrong. And then the people around her encouraged the behavior or, said to other people, well, this is how she is. This is just this versus, you know what, you're a good person. You have some good qualities. However, this behavior is not acceptable. Whereas I stood up and said, this behavior is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to my children. It's not acceptable for me to push stuff about my dad. It's just not acceptable behavior. And then I had to make a choice. If you continue this behavior, I don't have to have you in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It would be painful, but I choose me first. I choose my family.
Mm-hmm.
And a family is not, excuse me, and I think Tracy said this last, you don't only just need a mother. Your family is your family, but I think people have this, you don't just need your family.
I realized talking to you guys that the reason why I was anxious today too is because I just needed connection, right? So sometimes that not having eye contact and facial expression and confirming that you're a human and you have a body, Hey, but before we finish up tonight, Cherie asked a really good question. I thought maybe this would be the thing that we could end on is responding to her question. Can you guys see it, or do I have to put it on the?
I don't see it.
Okay, I have to put it on the screen. She wanted to know, outside of family or the therapy realm, how do you tactfully tell people that their behavior is messy? This is a fun one, I think.
Oof.
For me,
word hustle.
It's just, hey, look, you are really being very nasty right now, and I don't appreciate it. For me, I just feel it's better to be direct. I love you, but if it's a family member, for example,
she said outside of therapy and outside of family and telling a loved one that they have messy behavior.
I love you, Apple, but I don't like the way you behave. Mm-hmm. I think always starting with a positive, like a sandwich. You start with the positive is the outside of the bread, and in the middle, you just get to the meat of it. Then on the other side, you end with the positive, because I think even if we say to people who have messy behavior, I love you, I love you dearly, but right now you're behaving a little bit messy. So do you hear what I'm saying?
I'm taking a boundaries class right now because, Cherie, this is actually really hard for me. I think I'm a recovering people pleaser where I would wait and I've really damaged relationships because I waited until I got really angry with someone before I spoke up, rather than sort of being clear much, much sooner. And sometimes that makes a relationship unrecoverable, because if you wait that long, you're so mad that either I react in a way that's not cool, or you can't sort of get back on track with that person. So a couple things that I'm starting to become clear about what you said earlier, really, Reese. What are the qualities of my village? So I actually don't get super close to people that don't have those qualities. I kind of am careful. The second is I'm getting better at setting expectations with people ahead of time of what I need to stay connected. I just got a really sweet text message today from a friend, setting a boundary with me preemptively. She says, "Hey, when we go to this meeting, I don't want to bring up X, Y, and Z." I said, "Thank you so much for taking care of our connection and telling me what you need before that meeting, because I probably would have brought up X, Y, and Z, you know?" And then the last thing is, when somebody's behavior has been messy, because I'm developing a new relationship with my boundaries that doesn't say it's them being bad, it's just my need. I need these things to be true in order to have a good connection with you. Then I usually will say, "Hey, one of the things I know I'm going to need in order to feel really solid in our connection is for X, Y, and Z to be true." Like, I don't care if people are late, but some people care that people are late. So they might say, "Hey, one of the things I'm going to need is for you to be on time." Um, I'm trying to think, keeping your word. For me, you just learned the earlier part of our conversation. I know for a fact that I'm going to need you to take responsibility when we have a disagreement for your part.
Right.
So that's my answer.
It's like conflict resolution. And I think her question, it's best not to wait until you get mad. Because when you're mad or you're angry, we all know we say things that we may regret because we're reacting and we're not responding, as you said. So it's like once I recognize I have a person that can be a little messy, then it helps me learn how to be around that person. Because if I know that my friend is always late, then it's like, well, you know how I am about being on time. So if we're going to be there at 6 o'clock, you tell me what time that you will be ready. Then I get to make the decision if I want to wait for that person or I want to go on and they meet me there.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Lorraine?
What's coming up for me is that I have, and this, I think it takes a little bit more work, but because she said a loved one, what I've learned is people communicate differently and you have to communicate in the language that they speak in. So, and I'm not talking about the yelling and the screaming, but like identifying things that maybe, so if we're talking about being mad, so maybe you were hurt about something. So I'll use this as an example. There was an issue with like my grandparents and my mother, and then it circled back around like a different issue, but it was the same type of issue between my mother and I. And I said to her, I was like, "Remember when grandma and grandpa did A, B, C, and D to you?" And she was like, "Yeah, I didn't like it. Oh my God, it was horrible." And I'm like, "That's what you're doing to me now." So she was able to really capture that, how I was feeling, because she identified with it in the same kind of way, because really it had already happened to her. She just didn't realize she was doing it to me. So I have learned when I'm speaking or having a disagreement with someone that I have to use language that they understand from their context. Mm-hmm. So when I've worked with teenagers, when they were in foster care, a lot of foster children lived with their grandparents, and there would always be some sort of like conflict, kids cursing and whatever the deal was. And I remember saying to a kid, I'm like, "So if I met your grandmother in the street and I said exactly what you said, how would you feel?" She's like, "Oh no, we would have a problem." I was like, "So then why is it okay for you to do it?" So
Mhm.
for her to understand that that behavior, if it was viewed in someone else, she wouldn't like it. So then she shouldn't do it either. So that's kind of how I handle it. I try to use language. I try to pick up on things in context that people use. So that way, when I come back to them, it's in a place where they can understand, and that helps them understand the conflict that I'm trying to come across. So I feel like that takes a little bit more work. But when you said loved one, it's like I kind of feel like you kind of know them already. So you would have that language, because sometimes, like Reese said messy, and Tracy was like, I don't like the word messy, but they were kind of talking about it in the same way. Tracy just rephrased it differently. Like, she wants people to take ownership. She doesn't like the word labeling. So, what's the context of how the person wants it, how you want to address it with the person, so you can get their point across. Because if they don't understand the language, and I use that with air quotes, that you're speaking, they're not going to hear you. So maybe you are the one taking ownership of speaking their language so you are heard.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I like what Harry said too. It's hard to be tactful when we're mad. And I found that when I become too tactful, it leads me to be too indirect. Oh, people pleaser. That's people pleaser behavior. I'm queen of that.
Wow. But where do you think that came from, being a people pleaser?
Oh, all the stuff we've been talking about our mothers wanting to be loved, all
Mhm.
the usual
Okay.
stuff. Probably gender training too. I think women are taught to be people pleasers more than guys.
I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I totally agree, which I've taught our daughters to be the opposite. You meet me where I am, or you just don't meet me at all. Um, so I think it goes back to me. It sounds like communication. Communication, how we communicate. And I think the main thing is, if the two individuals are at a place where they're willing to listen. If I'm willing to listen to Tracy say, "Hey, I hear messy this way," and then I'm saying, "Hey, this is the way I understood it, but I understand what she's saying," and pretty much we were saying the same thing. We just was using different language.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Harriet. I like birth order. Adler. He's one of my favorite psychologists. Birth order.
Right, because look at his birth order and what happened to him. So I understand why he
You
said
talking
it.
about Alfred Adler or Harry Adler?
Alfred Adler.
Right.
Amazing.
which I understand him, but I understand that too. But birth order, I think, does matter, especially if there's more than one or two children. If there's a lot of children, I see it more with a
Super
lot of
important.
children,
Yeah.
because sometimes children get lost in that middle, and it's like they're trying to get to the top and they're trying to reach to the bottom, but they're in the middle. This kid down here gets everything. This girl or boy up here got everything because they're the first. So where do I fit in?
Well, the other thing that's come up for me with my clients is that when there's a lot of children, that youngest one, I have to really do an assessment around their relationship with their oldest siblings. Because a lot of times for that youngest child, their oldest siblings are also attachment objects. And
Yes.
if so, not just mom and dad. So if they were mistreated by their two oldest siblings, I
Mm,
actually see that they will have some funky attachment behavior, not just from mom and dad, but from the oldest siblings. So
interesting.
I want to shut up because I told you guys I was going to have to end on time here today because I have another thing I got to. We're doing a lot of these interview series, but this is fun. I think we should come with topics going forward because I think this makes the conversation super focused, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So folks that are watching that will watch this later, would you be willing to email the naked three at sidewalk-talk.org? Because we would love you to feel empowered to submit a topic and we'll spitball and riff and think about the topic. And I just want a little thank you and congratulations that I didn't curse today so I could actually boost this.
A round of applause.
Can I tell you something about my cursing really fast? I curse as it's rebellious against my religious upbringing.
Okay.
I love a good F-bomb.
Oh,
I
I
was
know.
raised in
It
Catholic
is.
school. I know the
I
deal.
did not curse until I was 17 years old. I was super straight edge, and I just thought it was so bad. Super funny.
Well, we weren't allowed to curse, but it wasn't like a religious thing. We just didn't do it. And my kids thought I didn't curse, so they went to Catholic school. So I think when they were like, my mom never curses. So every Saturday I cursed.
I did have a black friend confront me though, and she said, it's very privileged that you get to curse because you're white. Knock it off. I'm like, that's a good perspective.
Well, black folks do curse. Boy, they can lay it out too.
Yeah, but black folks are judged more harshly.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes. If I drop a F-bomb when I'm upset at work, I'm the angry black woman. When Tracy does it, people are like, oh my gosh,
It's so cute.
it's so cute. Yeah. Totally different connotation.
Oh, I guess
yeah.
I've not did an F-bomb at work before, so
because you're a classy lady.
No,
I'm definitely not a classy lady.
I'm thinking, people think I can go there. I mean, I think I'm tactful, but
although I do think it's really cute when you do the shiitake mushrooms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's really endearing.
Yeah, it's up, and I think my camera is going out. Why?
Yeah, because we need to say goodbye now, because we always say we're going to
down.
So are we after?
Yeah, we're always going to check in after. We stay on just a little bit, but not for 45 minutes like we did last time. So Cherie and Harry, thanks for being here. And then the two others that I can't see because you didn't comment. I'm going to just put our email here.
And maybe they'll send in a topic. Maybe Harry or Miss Smith would turn in a topic of that they want to talk about.
It worked. Now you've got our email. That goes to all three of us. So it gets sent to all three of us so we all see it, just so you know. All righty. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week. And there'll be another live tonight with Stuart Chittenden. Tomorrow on Instagram Live, we will have Simone Callender, who is Shirley Chisholm's niece, who is the founder of the Shirley Chisholm Foundation, will be coming live on the Sidewalk Talk Instagram page. And then we're also going to have Sarah Huang. She does civic engagement and deep democracy work with many organizations. She might be the best facilitator I've ever met in my entire life. This person is, I just love being a learner and get to be around these cool people. So they're coming tomorrow too. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.